And I just want to make sure that we thank our sponsors here real quick. First of all, NKU for giving us the lovely Digitorium for this event. We also want to thank the Oink Film Festival. If you're not familiar with that, that is the official impromptu Northern Kentucky Film Festival. It is an event that is thrown here by NKU students for the community. It's a day-long Saturday. This time it's March 22nd. There's a QR code out there if you want to find out more about it. And it's a day with networking, panels, workshops, activities all around the media industry for college and for everyone in the community. We have a lot of great community partners, but we also do a screening of high school work. So if you know a high school, if you are a high school filmmaker, we give away great prizes and wonderful sparkly pink trophies that are very coveted. So this is also brought to you by the Oink Film Festival. Also, Women in Film Cincinnati. My other hat is I'm the vice president for Women in Film Cincinnati. We are a local nonprofit that is not just about women in film. We like to represent all underserved voices in the film community, but we are open to all genders. It's a membership organization. We have lots of wonderful events, including an annual holiday party coming up December 4th at the Woodward. Free and open to all, great networking, come meet lots of people in the media industry. And then our main sponsor here, Friday Football Live, I'm going to hand it over to Wes to talk about that because that's Wes. That's Wes Akers, our professor here who runs Friday Football Live and all of our kind of live sports coverage. So I'll hand it over to him to kick off this panel, and thank you all so much for being here.
Sounds good. Thank you, Sarah. I'm assuming my mic works. I didn't even check it. I just put it on. So I think we're good, right? Sound good? All right. Very good. Thanks, everybody, coming out. I really appreciate it. Our promotional skills and communication skills at organizing these events and things like that are not really the greatest just yet, so we're working on it, but we appreciate the turnout and those of you who are here. Again, we're kind of recording this event. I'm probably stepping out of the wide shot. We locked down a wide shot, so I'm supposed to stay right here. Very good. Yeah, so we're live streaming this on our little football show, Red Zone thing that we do, and we're also recording it. We're trying to get this out to some local high schools and their media programs, as well as any other college students in the area that might be interested in listening to these very successful professionals that we've been fortunate to have here tonight. Over the years, I think last year, so first of all, our Friday Football Live show, that's like the third year we've done it. It's kind of a little sort of experimental thing we do with like live streaming and certain equipment that's out there. But we had like a group of students that started to notice, you know, the group of students, we do a lot of the live productions here at NKU, so we're usually in the production truck and setting up all the equipment and whatever. So we kind of wanted to do something in high school football, but we wanted to have sort of a night off. So we kind of enjoyed watching all these other student productions from the area as they struggle and try to put together a live production. And we had some equipment, and we thought, you know, what would be fun is if we did like an NFL Red Zone show, where we went to, you know, the big games at certain times. I wasn't sure we could pull it off or not, but we have. And I have a ton of students that get involved, that love it. We get together, we eat a lot of really bad hot dogs and pizza, and we follow all these games, and now we've got reporters in the field to give us live updates. And so I don't know, we'll keep doing it. But the nice thing about it is the relationships that we've made with some of the local high schools. And also given some students some opportunities. So it's been a lot of fun for us, and one of the things we wanted to do was some sort of an outreach sort of program where, well, at the end, let's just bring in some professionals and try to get some advice and things from them that we can get to our particular target audience that we usually try to reach. So this is year 2 of this other experiment that we're doing. We have a lot of experiments around here. Someday we'll actually be good at some stuff. So this is kind of year 2 of our effort. Sarah last year had her film festivals class that helped us out with the live productions and helped us put this thing on. Of course, now she teaches it in the spring, so we've kind of had to do it ourselves. And then she's also very active with the Women in Film, so we thought this would be a perfect match because when I did this last year and I've done some other stuff, I've always taken notice of, especially from this university, how many successful females we've put out into the field who are exceptionally good at what they do, and they're also, you know, one of a minority. I always think it's like, gosh, there's not many people who direct, you know, Major League Baseball that are female, and on and on. So I thought we could do a panel that just focused on women in sports. So here we finally have it. I have to be honest with you, I'm not very good at moderating. It's only the second time I've sort of done this thing, and I should have retired the first time, but I'm going to give it a second chance. I juggle quite a few things, including directing our sports. We had a big game last night, and the questions that I had about 10 minutes, about 15 minutes yesterday. Wrote out some nice questions. Would have those as a backup, memorize those a little bit. I have no idea where those are, none whatsoever. But I'm really good at BSing and improvising, so that's what we're going to do tonight. Plus, they'll help me, you'll help me. We'll get through this. So if it seems like I don't quite have it all together, that's a good observation.
You'll find them tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'll find them as soon as everyone walks out of here tonight. And I'll be like, oh, there they are. I'm pretty sure they're in this notebook, but I keep going through it, and I find all the notes from the 5 other projects I have going on, but I can't find those 15 questions I had that would get me through this. So my safety blanket is gone. We're joined tonight with Betsy Ross. Betsy has so many different potential titles, trying to describe, okay, well, is she this, or how we describe it? I don't know. There's like 15 different great things we could say that is Betsy Ross. Betsy Ross, Sierra Newton, Jen Herringer, and joining us remotely in Milwaukee, Jamie Patton, and Teresa Turner, joining us from all the way out in Reno, Nevada, is where she is now. Another interesting thing about this panel, too, is I wanted to have a certain number of people, and several of the potential people that were here and several of the people that are here now have gone through some career moves and career changes. So literally within the past few weeks, so in terms of what their availability was going to be, so it's been a little bit crazy. So Jamie's been out in Milwaukee for about a season now, I think. So she's been there long. But then Teresa is like on week 1, I think, of her job out in Nevada. And Jen, you still have a job, right, at the moment? So, yeah. Okay, very good. Jen will tell you a little bit more about that later. So what I'll do real quick is I'll just go around to each person. And if you can just, again, tell us kind of who you are, your title, what you do, and then just kind of briefly sort of how you got to this point, and then we'll come back and get a little bit deeper on that. So, Jen, I guess since you're standing right next to me, I'll have to start with you.
I get to go first, huh?
You get to go first. Are you as nervous as you were last year?
Not as bad.
Okay, good.
Because you did a great job moderating despite
That's
what you said.
That's why I should have quit. I know. I should have given up right
You
then.
did a really good job with that. So not as nervous. I'm usually behind the scenes. I'm not used to being in front of cameras, so I do get a little nervous with that. But I'm Jen Herringer. Currently, what I do is I direct Cincinnati Reds baseball games. We just had a big announcement last week, so we're changing networks. So it's been very stressful with all of that going on. But as of now, I assume I'm still good to continue to do that. So it's just a change. We are no longer with our previous network, and we're going to be produced and distributed by MLB TV. So that's a big change. But I've been directing Reds games for the last 5 or 6 years, I think. Prior to that, I grew up in the in-house of the Reds organization. I started out in the scoreboard, is what we called it. A jumbotron is what a lot of people know it as. But I was a student here at NKU. I graduated in '97, and I started out doing Reds games in the scoreboard again through an internship that was through the school. So that's how I got in. 28 years later, I'm still doing Reds games. So that's how I got started. That's what I continue to do. Met a lot of great people through it. Jamie and I have worked together in the past for the in-house operation, and Wes and I graduated together. We were interns together, actually.
We were the first interns.
We were the first interns for the scoreboard.
30-some years ago? It's a while.
1997?
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, so it's been a while.
That's pretty good.
That's it.
Sierra?
I'm next. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name's Sierra Newton. I am a sports multimedia journalist at LAX 18 in Lexington, Kentucky. My main thing is providing some type of update about UK athletics at 5 o'clock every day. And then I also am a part of BBN Tonight, Big Blue Nation Tonight. It's 30 minutes all about UK athletics. And so obviously right now it's a fun time because it's crossover season. So we have football going on, and then the basketball team's getting going. And 2 new eras of head coaches, so it's been a lot of fun being able to have a hand in some Kentucky basketball history. I always knew I wanted to be a journalist when I was younger. It wasn't until like I got into high school that I thought about doing sports journalism. I've always played sports, but then I'm 5'6" and not gifted that much when it comes to athletics. So I was like, how can I stay around sports, but I'm not doing it. And so sports broadcasting. I graduated here in 2020. I was a part of the Northerner. I was a sports editor. Had Wes as my professor. I had several internships at news stations in the area and back in Lexington. And I've been on air for about a year now, and I've been doing sports for 2 years down in Lexington. So it's been a fun time. I like it a lot.
Betsy.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for being here with us. I am thrilled to be back here on the campus of NKU. I taught television just down the street. And, well, I was going to say not all that long ago, but it's probably been 15 years at least, when Russ was still here at the department, maybe longer than 15 years. So I taught for several years here at NKU. So it's fun to be back. Place looks a lot different, let me tell you. I got started, I guess, I always say the only reason I got into sports is because I raised my hand, I volunteered. When I got into broadcasting, there were not very many women doing sports, especially not locally. You never saw a female sports reporter. And it was one of these things that, thankfully, and it is still true today, I think you can probably attest to that sports departments are inherently short-staffed. There are never enough people to cover sports. I don't care if it's the Inquirer, I don't care if it's a television station, there aren't enough people to cover sports. And so when I was going to graduate school and I was working at the South Bend Tribune newspaper in Indiana, they covered high school sports a lot like high school sports are here. I mean, you know, this place goes crazy over high school sports. And so I just kind of toddled across the hall and I said, do you need help covering sports? Never had done it in my life, but I was always a sports fan. And so they said yes. I mean, they didn't care. They just wanted another body out there. And so that's how I got started covering sports, was high school sports in northern Indiana, southern Michigan, started covering Notre Dame sports, again, really wherever I was needed because they needed the help. And even though my first job in broadcasting was in news, again, I volunteered to cover sports because, again, they needed bodies. And so I got a lot of sports experience that way, and that kind of played into what I wanted to do all the way up to when I was working at Channel 5 here in Cincinnati. I volunteered to cover the Atlanta Olympics in 1996, and we had an inordinate amount of kids here in our area and coaches and trainers who were going to the Olympics. We probably had a couple of dozen people here in Greater Cincinnati going to the Olympics. And so, yes, it was a sports story, but it was a news story. And so I volunteered, I covered the Olympics, and then right after I was finished covering Olympics, ESPN launched ESPN News. And again, they needed people who could anchor. They were looking for people who could anchor long form, an hour or two at a time, which you do in news. Sports still gets a minute and a half, 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes. And so I had the anchor experience and I had the sports experience. So I always tell students, if there is something that you want to do, volunteer. First of all, it'll look great. Your professors are going to go, wow, they volunteered to do that. But it gets you experience. And I told somebody, I said, I can't remember if I was paid when I was working sports at the South Bend Tribune. I can't remember if I was paid or not. And it really doesn't matter if I was paid or not, because the experience I got was well worth the $2 I had to pay to park to go to a basketball game. It was so worth it just to get that experience.
We start with Teresa. Teresa?
I don't know how to follow up from that. That was awesome, Betsy. So I started my career in sports my junior year of college. I went to Western Michigan University, and I was on Indeed.com looking for a job, literally just to pay the bills, and I saw they had an open camera position with Bronco Productions there, and it said no experience required, and I said, okay, that sounds cool. I like sports. I was in the band, in the marching band, in the pep band, so I've always been a big fan of, cheering on all sporting events. So I applied, and from there, I just ended up saying yes to everything. I was a replay operator for Bronco Productions, and then just did camera work. And then eventually, after I graduated, they hired me on as a Bronco Productions assistant, where I started to get into the more creative side. And so I made intro videos, social media, all that fun stuff. And then 6 months after graduation, I became the first director of creative video for Purdue Fort Wayne, up in Fort Wayne, Indiana. So I was there for a year, and then I met, what was it, Wes, Brad, what's his name?
Brian?
The former
McEldowney?
Oh yeah, Brian.
Yep.
Yeah, Brian. So I met him at a sports conference, and so I became the director of digital media at Northern Kentucky University. So that's how I know Wes. And so I was there from 2020 through 2021. So obviously we all know 2020 in sports was a very interesting year. Had some long walks and talks with Wes during that year. And then I got picked up by Auburn University, obviously the SEC school with, it was we had a very large group of people working creative there, but also very high demand when it comes to that. So I learned so much working for the SEC school and just working and traveling. And like I said, I learned it back in my junior year in college of just saying yes to everything and just be willing and excited. And I know that sports also is a lot of long hours, but you hear it from your family and friends that you have such a cool job, right? And you just have to think of that through every day that even though it's long hours and it's a lot of work, it is really freaking cool to be doing this. So after my time at Auburn, I decided to take on the position that I have now at University of Nevada as the director of creative video here for the Wolfpack. And I'm actually going into my 3rd week now. I've lived in Reno since Halloween. But yeah, I think it was Sierra that said it, that a lot of wherever you're at can be understaffed, and you just do with it what you can. And so right now I'm currently just figuring it out and hoping to build the brand of the Wolfpack out here in Reno.
Jamie.
Awesome. So I'm Jamie Patton. I'm Executive Director of Entertainment for the Milwaukee Brewers. And I went to NKU as well. Started taking Wes's classes, and like many of these women have already said, started volunteering, getting involved, asking Wes what I could do. I remember working camera for wrestling matches and random high school volleyball matches and anything and everything. And then I eventually got an internship with the Cincinnati Reds. I was Jen's intern, so learn from the best. And right after that internship, I was able to get hired full-time with the Reds. And so I've spent the last 17 seasons with the Reds. Worked my way up to senior director there, but then an opportunity came in Milwaukee this year for a promotion. And especially when you rise to the top, there's not a lot of opportunities for those promotions. So, and it kind of felt right. It felt like a time for me to really take the next challenge and step in my career. So this is one that I just couldn't ignore. So I took the job for the Milwaukee Brewers. So just spent my 18th season in baseball. And we had a successful season. It was a good learning season for me because it was different. I was working with a whole bunch of new people and in a whole new organization for the first time in a while. But but it was amazing, and I'm glad I made the switch. And that's my quick story.
Thank you, Jamie. So the panelists that we have, when it comes to like sports production, it's this wide field of different skill sets, different roles, occupations, and it keeps getting larger, and it keeps growing. And everyone on the panel has covered certain areas of this field. So this is why I kind of want to put together these folks. So we've got Betsy that covers the sports anchor, sports reporter, and a million other things. And did you mention anchoring in SportsCenter when you went through that? I don't know if you did you?
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
I was hired for ESPN News.
Okay.
And then we would switch back and forth often, to fill
Okay.
on SportsCenter. And I anchored, usually it was the weekend SportsCenters.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah.
I wasn't sure if you mentioned it. I heard all the other stuff, and I was like, man, I don't think she'd mention the thing about SportsCenter. That's kind of like a pretty big deal, right? So Betsy kind of covers that area, and then Sierra is now sort of the multimedia journalist, TV station. Jen does the directing of live sports. Jamie does a lot of the in-house productions that you see for Major League Sports. And then Teresa is our creative video content person. She makes a lot of the hype, sizzle, social video type videos, introduction type videos, those sorts of things. So everyone's kind of got the different areas, whether it's like broadcast journalism, live TV, or something more creative for social media. So with that being said, I'll go around to each person and just have you kind of tell us what is your job entail? I mean, what is it like to be a director of live sports for people who don't quite maybe understand what that is?
Okay, good
And for
question.
people who do.
A lot of my family members don't even really understand
Mine have
my
no
job.
clue. Yeah.
My son for years thought that I kept the score at the games. That's what he told people. So, and then many people think because I'm a director that I sit in a chair like this and do my job, but that's not the case. So each live production typically have a producer and a director. What I do as directing is I always say that my producer comes up with the plan, like the story ideas and the things that we want to get across during a broadcast. My job is to execute the producer's plan. So during the baseball game, for example, we have a pregame show leading into the game. So again, producer-driven content, and I'm looking at their rundown and figuring out how I can execute their vision and what they want to get through that day. As far as in-game, if you're watching a broadcast, all of the camera cutting changes, those are decisions that I'm making. I am calling the cameras. Even though I don't love talking in public, I talk all day at my job, but it's through a headset, so it's much different than this. So be patient with me if I sound a little nervous. But yeah, so during the game, we're just trying to show all aspects of what is happening on the field so the viewer at home can see everything that's going on. That includes, in baseball particular, following the ball. You got to see the ball wherever it goes, while also trying to follow runners. There might be multiple runners on, so you got to maybe score this runner. Oh, where's the ball now? What's going on here? We got to get crowd reaction. So it's a whole lot of just making split-second decisions, calling the camera cuts. Additionally, my producer is choosing the replay angles. So, they will ready me what angles they want to see. So he might say, like, let's do gold X, silver Y. So then I, again, just execute his plan and do the replay sequence. So I'm the one talking to the people, telling them to roll their machines. I'm adding the graphics, telling them to animate them in, telling them to animate it out. So I am basically telling people what to do all night long for hours, but again, trying to, on the broadcast, show the fans at home like what they would be seeing if they were in the ballpark. So again, things like crowd reactions are huge because we want you to want to be there. So
Yeah, it's. I think Rustin probably didn't coin the term, but I heard it first from him. He called it live editing.
exactly, and it's very stressful because it's live. You know, there's no taking it back. If you miss a big play, it will haunt you for forever. So it's a lot of stress, but we have a really good team, and so I feel like my production staff, they make my job easy, and I'm proud to do it. And it's what.
And how many people are usually, people are always surprised to learn how many people are involved in a live TV production?
Sure. I would say in the 20 range, maybe a little bit higher. Last season we had 7 hard camera operators. We had a handheld operator. That's just cameras. And then inside the truck, you have producer, director, you have a graphics operator, a graphics coordinator, the bug operator, the person keeping the score, and then you have a whole tape room. That's a whole separate part of the truck. So in the tape room, you probably have at least 5 replay operators. Then you have video shaders, the engineers. They're the ones who are making the cameras look the color that they should look. The grass should be green. White uniforms should be white. So you have 2 for the home show. We're also dealing with a visit show, so you have like 1 engineer for the visit show. Then you have somebody that's called like an ENG person. They're the camera person that goes into the locker room to get pre and post game sound. You have the talent that's on air, 2 pregame hosts, sideline reporter, 2 guys up in the booth. We have audio techs. You have a master audio, the A1 person, and then you probably have 2 A2s per show. You have a stage manager up in the booth, technical director. I almost left that out. It's one of my most important people I work with is the person who pushes the buttons. Like when I'm calling the show and telling somebody what to do, they're the ones actually pushing the buttons and executing what I'm saying. So there's a lot. There's a lot more than people might initially think. It's all one big, it's like a symphony, right? Everything goes.
It's like an orchestra. It's like a
Yeah.
conductor of an orchestra.
Yeah,
Absolutely,
exactly, exactly.
Although they don't usually yell and cuss, but yeah, that sort of a thing. So. And you have to literally talk at like an auctioneer's pace for like, what, 2-3 hours?
Yeah, it's like, we start on cam 4. So it's like, ready 4, take 4, ready 2, take 2, ready 5, take 5, ready this, ready that, ready this. And then we get into replays. It's ready replay to A, roll A, ready dissolve to X, roll X, dissolve X, ready dissolve Y, dissolve Y, ready to replay out to camera 4, replay out to camera 4.
This goes on for
Add the
like
font,
3 hours.
Animate the font,
Right,
lose the
yeah.
font. So there's a lot of that. And then counting down from breaks and things like that, getting in and out of commercials.
It's a crazy dynamic.
Yeah, so again, I always find it funny because, I wanted to be Betsy Ross when I was, she's legend right here. So
Right.
I thought it was so cool that there was a woman on TV talking about sports, and that's what I thought I wanted to do. And then I started coming to school and realized quickly, like, I'm not built for on camera. But, I found a way to stay in the sports industry, so.
But you talk sports on television 3 hours a day.
I do.
So look at that.
I just don't have people looking at me, watching me do it. But yeah. So, and the other thing people don't understand are our days are long. So for home games on set days, our entire crew, we're getting in there 6 hours for home games before the game even starts. And for road games, it's a 7-hour call for the first day of the road trip. And the number one question people always say is, well, what do you do for 6 hours when you get there? And it's like there's a whole lot of things that have to be prepared. Day one, the cameras have to be built, right? Then they're set, but they still have to come in. They have to be faxed every day, make sure everything's working. It's a technical field, so every day there's going to be some sort of technical issue that has to be like troubleshot. All the graphics have to be typed. Like they're not automated. Someone has to come in. The producer provides them a packet of information that then has to be typed and prepared. I have to come in and make sure that all of my technical aspects are working, and we do pre-production, and a lot goes on in that time. We're pretty busy from the time we get in, so it's a pretty long day. And then, thankfully, no more. We were having over 3-hour-long games, but now with the pitch clock, that has gotten so much better. I would say we're averaging about 2.5-hour games, but then there's always extra innings or rain delays, so they can be pretty long days, but I wouldn't trade it for anything.
A 1-0 baseball game is a beautiful thing.
I love a good pitching duel.
Good pitching is so nice in live TV. Yes, game goes fast. Sierra, tell us about your day.
All right, so it also depends on the day of the week what I'm doing. On a normal day, I'll say throughout the weekdays, usually I'll come in, see if I'm supposed to go to a press conference or something, shoot that, and then if I have a story, setting that up, communicating with the sports information directors about who I want to talk to, when I want to talk to them, my vision for whatever story I have, and then I go shoot it, I edit it myself, put it together, make sure it's ready for whatever broadcast it's going into, whether it's the 5 or our BBN Tonight show. Also, the first year I was in BBN Tonight, I was a producer. So most of the time, my executive producer knows that I know how to write into my things. So he's like, that's all you. You got the whole thing. So not only am I editing and putting it together, but I'm also writing into whatever package or story I have and also writing the story itself. And then a part of BBN Tonight, or my responsibilities with BBN Tonight, is doing the social media type thing. So like if there's anything that was really cool or people will find a lot of interest in, I'll make sure to put that on social in some kind of appealing way, as opposed to just the typical taking what we have on TV and just putting that on social. I try to find some cool way to make it a little different, but sometimes it is what it is. I also do game day stuff too as well. I don't get there 6 hours before, but 2 or 3 hours before the game starts, I like to get there just to make sure that all my equipment is working. I know that if I have to do a live hit or anything, I make sure I have all that ready. You shoot the game, and then you have post-game afterwards, and then after post-game, you shoot your stand-ups for, depending on what time of the day the game is, the 6 o'clock news or the 11 o'clock news. And then I also will shoot something for BBN Tonight the next day or morning sports. So a lot of different things on a lot of different days, but you wear a lot of hats, you do a lot of different things, but it's a lot more fun going outside the newsroom and being able to talk to people, make connections, and that kind of thing.
So the modern day journalist, back in the day, starting small market, and so I always use the, since this is a sports panel, I always use the minor league baseball example. You're going to start, you can be the number 1 pick in the draft, but you're going to start in some really small station somewhere in the middle of wherever. And you've got to be a one-person band where you shoot, edit, write, carry the equipment. I used to have to carry the lighting equipment. I mean, it was like 70 pounds of equipment. We had like 3/4-inch decks back then. I mean, it was nuts. And the spare batteries were like size of a cinder block and
We
weighed
have
that much.
wagons now, thankfully,
Yeah,
because
you're
sometimes,
lucky.
I'll carry
Yeah.
this big wagon in with me behind
Yes.
me, and people are always like, "Oh my gosh, you do that all by yourself?" And I'm like, "Yeah, do you want to carry something?"
Yeah. Yes. Now it's the multimedia journalist is kind of the phrase, and this is your small market, medium market. In theory, your bigger markets will have someone who just shoots and someone who can just concentrate on reporting. But even the bigger markets now want to hire a few multimedia journalists as well to contribute to web and also contribute some stories as well. So that's the stage of career and where Sierra is. Betsy, you could talk about, you got a lot of angles and areas that you can talk about from your experience. So what's it like working at a national sports network as an anchor? That's a unique perspective and a unique position and occupation not many people get to. That's kind of where everyone wants to get to. But what's it like doing that job when you come in on a daily basis?
I think that anybody who has read any of the ESPN books, and usually every 2 or 3 years somebody writes another ESPN book, it makes it sound like it's Animal House. It makes it sound, and it may have been that way before I got there. By the time I got there, Disney owned it. It was, as we like to call it, Disney-fied. It was not crazy wild, wild west like some of the stories as you probably read when ESPN got started. But if you're a fan, if you're a sports fan, that's where you want to work. That's where you want to be, because every resource is directed toward making your newscast the best, the latest, the most factual that it can be at that time of the night. When I would work, if you're familiar with, the format has changed now, but ESPN News was kind of like CNN headline news. It was like stories and updates and scores all day long. They have changed that format now, but when I was there, like we had a shift like from 4 to 8, and then from 8 to 11. And 8 to 11, naturally, is when all the games would be going on. And so you would be updating all night long. It was like election night. I mean, they would slip highlights underneath your nose, and you had to pick it up and start reading. And if you didn't know how to pronounce Nikolai Habibulin, and they tried to put it phonetically on that highlight, this Midwestern girl from Indiana who didn't know that much about NHL messed it up. But that goes with the territory. But it is on the fly because, again, you want to give the best, the most accurate highlights, the most accurate scores at that time as you're going on. During the day, if you had a 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock shift, it was a lot of features, it was a lot of previews of that night. You would do interviews with Sal Powell and John Clayton and some of the people out in the field. But yeah, working that night shift, it was a lot like election night because things were just flying, like you said, live television. You'd have live highlights, you'd have live scores that you were updating. But being at ESPN, I mean, it's the only place that every dollar goes into the resources that you need to put on a good sportscast. And the second thing is, it's the only place that I have worked that they put a premium on your writing skills. Because 40 years ago, when they started ESPN, it was started by a bunch of newspaper guys, a bunch of magazine guys, yes, I mean guys, but they were journalists in the true sense of the word. They were sports journalists like Frank DeFord and Mike Lupica and some of the folks that you'll probably want to Google. But they were sports journalists, and so they put a really high premium on your writing skills. I went up twice to audition for ESPN, and each time they would give you the 11 o'clock Sports Center script, said rewrite it, and then come out here and we'll shoot you on the set. And so they wanted to see your writing skills along with your knowledge of sports and your presentation. So I always prided myself on writing because ESPN put a high value on writing, and I always respected that because, as we know, good writers are hard to come by. And they wanted good writers. They wanted you to be a good writer. And I really appreciated that because if you're a good writer, you can do anything. Doesn't have to be in sports. You know, you doesn't have to be in communications and broadcasting. You have to write a resume. You have to write a cover letter. You have to write a proposal for a business. You have to write something for your kid's PTA newsletter. You use writing. So if you can write, you can do anything, whether it's in this business or not. So, you know, work on those writing skills, whatever you do, because the places that really value journalism will want good writers, will want somebody like you. And tell you what, you will move up to the top of that list if you're a good writer. They will love to hire you.
I think that's especially important now, and Sierra, you can probably follow up on this a little bit, just because you have to take content and reformat it for the different distribution methods, right? You have your traditional journalistic news piece, whatever the journalistic news medium you might be writing for, and then you've got to change it and tweak it for social media to point people in that direction.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and I'm sure you live it every day. You've got to write something for social, you got to write something for the website, you got to write something for your package, and you know, and don't think in the back of your head, oh, I'll just chat GPT and hit the button and there it is.
People
Yeah,
will
you
know.
can, but
People will know,
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to Big Blue Nation. I feel like the fan base, they are so invested and ingrained in what everyone's writing and what everyone's putting out that they can tell when it's not someone's actual voice coming through what you're writing or what you're saying. Like, recently my thing has been being more conversational instead of just telling what's happening like I'm talking to my sister or my mom or whoever. And so like people have come up to me and they've been like, oh, I noticed that like you feel a lot more comfortable when you're talking on camera. And so like, do not rely on ChatGPT or anything like that. And being a strong writer definitely helps. That's how I got in the door. I started at LAX 18 as a digital content producer. So all I did was web stories, and they weren't necessarily sports. But I kept bugging the sports team. I was like, hey, I know how to write sports. If you need help, I know how to write sports. And so there was one night where everyone was out busy doing something, and they were like, well, Sierra keeps coming in here. Let's give her a chance. And so then I did that for a couple of months, and then I became an associate producer. So my main thing was writing the sports articles for our website and then writing for the show as well. And then I made my way on TV. But all of that is because I started writing here at the Northerner while I was in college.
Very good. We'll go to Teresa now. So Teresa does creative video. So now we get into a different sort of like field production shooting, which for these folks with live broadcast and journalism, it's going out in the field, it's objectively documenting the game and telling the story from that particular perspective. With Teresa, who works for these sports teams, she's introducing cinematic technique with lenses and frame rates and special effects and music to promote the team. When she was here during COVID, we were actually neighbors. So we walked almost every day during COVID for like a year and a half or whatever, planning the stuff we were going to do with our students. But I was secretly picking her brain because she knew how to do a lot of stuff I didn't, especially in this area. So she taught me a lot, and I've studied the stuff that she does, and I continue to study it to learn. So Teresa, explain the world of creative video content for us.
Yeah, so I'm gonna take a step back and just talk about like when I was at my first job at Purdue Fort Wayne and then going into Northern Kentucky. A lot of what I had to do was a one-man band. Like I said, I was the first director of video for creative content at PFW. I had a live broadcasting background from Western Michigan, so I was literally doing everything at that school. I would be directing a show and doing replay at the same time, believe it or not. And then afterwards, I would be doing the post-game press conference. And then the next day, I'd be turning around intro videos for men's and women's basketball or baseball and softball. And then at Northern Kentucky, since you guys have such a great live program there, I was able to handle the creative side of making video board content and also running the social media channels. So then I got the position at Auburn where there were 5 more of me. So I only had to oversee 2 sports when I was there. It was women's basketball and women's soccer. And I gotta say, in the SEC, women's basketball was really exciting. We played LSU and we ended up beating them at home. And I just remember before that game, everybody was just like, yeah, there's no chance. And then by the third quarter, we had a lot more media showing up to our home court as we beat LSU after that. So now at Nevada, when it comes to college institutions, you will never find 2 universities that are the same. I know you can say that about MLB, NHL, NBA, any of, those pro teams. But when it comes to universities, there is a lot of new things happening and programs either, actually becoming a sport there. And so for my day to day, I'm trying to see how to sum this up. So I have to work very closely with fan experience, marketing, coaches, student athletes, and then of course the students. And I think what really makes me stay in college athletics is because I remember not too long ago saying that, like, you know, my junior year at Western Michigan, I had no idea what I wanted to do. And there are a lot of students, obviously, that I work with when I talk to, you know, every day, that I'm just like, what do you want to get into? What do you want to be when you grow up? And they're just like, we're not really sure. And so I feel just so privileged that I get to work with students every day, that like I have this, you know, vast background in both the live and creative side. You know, like Jen mentioned, it is a lot to, you know, be talking and talking and talking for 3-4 hours at a time. And so I was a replay operator. That's how I got on the creative side. But the live side just was not for me. It's a lot of pressure. And I just think that with my degree in film, video, and media studies, I really just wanted to dive into the more cinematic aspect of it. So there is a lot of planning when it comes to like intro videos and other social media pieces. I think that, you know, for example, right now we're already scouting out our locations to shoot, like, you know, the green screen content and the other backdrops and the intro video for baseball and softball. And they're coming up in February and March. And so I'm working very closely with the students here to just see, like, you know, what their strengths are, and also just like plan out what, you know, the brand is of the Nevada Wolfpack. You know, back at Auburn University, it was a lot easier because they have a lot of traditions, right? They've got the War Eagle and Toomer's Corner and the Eagle Flight and all those types of things to like base off of. But like, we've got the Wolfpack. So you just have to start thinking like, what is going to engage all of your, you have like 3 levels. You have your potential student athletes, you have your alumni, and you have your already, you know, your fan base. You've got like the student athletes and their families. And so when it comes to doing creative video production, you have to think of all those aspects and just be willing to take chances. I suggested doing some type of spoof of Reno 911 here. That did not really go over well. But, you know, I gotta ask these questions and not be afraid to fail when you're working in the creative, because, you know, you could do some silly 10-second video that you're just like, well, you know what, why not? Let's see what happens. And if it fails, what's the worst that could happen? Or it could be a 10-second video that you get 1 million views overnight. So it is really exciting to be working on the college level of creative, because you have so many, you know, students and alumni that are watching and just want to reminisce on their time at that university. And just there's so much you can do with it to build off of the tradition that's there.
So Teresa, when you create a creative video for a game, so when you get there for the game, you shoot your footage, you go, you edit it, and then you post it. Tell me, what are you looking for in terms of shots you want to put in that piece? And then how long does it take you to pick the music? How long does it kind of take you to do the editing? And what is sort of your deadline pressure in terms of, okay, I got to have this thing up and published to this particular audience at this particular time? Is it in the evening? Is it the next day? Do you put out a little something in the evening and then the next day have sort of your grand, almost like mini documentary sort of a thing? Or what is your strategy as someone who does creative video approaching a game? What is your game day, game night like as you approach the game?
Yeah, sure. So I actually created my first recap video the other night, so this is great that I have that to base off of. So I will show up probably 2 hours before the game, and I have 2 or 3 other shooters, you know, creative shooters, and I tell them, you know, we've got one person on the baseline. I like the high up angle for basketball where you can like see the bench react, or for us on the opposite side, we have the pep band and the student section. So if we get a really nice dunk or a 3-pointer, you get the reactions from the pep band and the student section. And so, and then we just have another student that's literally just walking around, getting reactions from the fans and just like setting the tone so that when we put the recap video together, you know, for the live side, you just see live, you know, what happens in the game. Whereas like in the recap, it can tell more so of like the behind the scenes, what's happening that's not on the broadcast. And I know that like obviously the broadcast, there is a different way of storytelling, with, you know, a lot more like graphics and stats and whatnot. But then like we get the opportunity after the fact to really just like share the story and show like in venue of what's happening. So after all is said and done, once we're done shooting, and I will actually go back, we do in-game editing as well. So this past weekend, Saturday, we had a men's basketball game at 7 p.m. There was a media timeout, and one of our players had, you know, just broke some guys' ankles and had a really, you know, good jumper shot. So I said, that'll be a really great one shot for social media. And so during a media timeout, I already have Premiere Pro set up, and I just basically sprint where I need to be, and I plug in my SD card and edit it really quick and hope that the buzzer doesn't go off before I'm back down on the baseline, and get that out really quick. So yeah, we shoot in-game content. I know our photographers also, I think it's Lightroom that they use, that they edit on their phone. So they'll be able to like send it to our social media coordinator, who's also a woman and is crushing it. So we're working very closely together, coordinating, you know, she's the one that's posting for the Nevada Wolfpack, and I'm creating the content. So after the game, we decide that the best analytics is going to be the posting the very next day before noon. So I have all of the students afterward, after the game, they log their footage, and I get the broadcast audio from our play-by-play analyst. And so then like that night, I'm all set up and ready to go. And either I'll work on it that night for a little bit, or I'll wake up early in the morning and get going on the recap video. And so it is a really quick turnaround when it comes to, you know, these night games. And we work very late hours. Sometimes we're up till 2 in the morning. But like I said, with this last one, I was like, since it was a Saturday night, I just thought, well, I'll just get up early on the Sunday and just work from home. And so I put it together, and we just post it on our Slack channel, and we get the approval from, you know, our SIDs or any other eyes that are looking at it. And so that's basically I don't know if I missed anything, but it's a really quick turnaround. And I think as long as we're communicating with each other, like I just have so many text messages coming up right now, just like all the planning we have to do is a lot. But you know, when you get to see the like actual social media reactions from the fans and everything, just being really excited for that win and whatnot, and just seeing people like commenting on your videos. Like sometimes you don't want to go on it. I'm not on social media all the time when it comes to the harsh comments from some of the fans. But when you see some fans being like, oh man, I remember watching the Wolfpack back in the 70s, and I'm so glad they're doing well again. It's just like, you know, it's just so heartwarming to know that like you're, you know, still able to share these memories with people.
Right. It's interesting, I've noticed, so when I work with student reporters and also students on the creative stuff, and we go to our conference tournament or whatever it might be, or even just regular season games, that media room, you know, it used to be, you know, at the end of the night, I do go back a little ways, but it used to be like all the sports writers would be, you know, doing their stories for the deadline the next day. And then you would see, the TV people trying to bang out their packages or get their footage back to the station. And now those people are still there, but it's these teams of social media folks that are in there with their headsets on, and they're like frantically trying to edit the stuff that they have in their footage as quickly as possible. It's just an interesting dynamic how technology has changed certain things. Jamie, you've probably been doing in-house. I want to make you feel old here. And since you're my student, it makes me feel old too, so probably we shouldn't go down this path, but we are. You've been doing this for quite a while. I mean, in terms of in-house video, the live, the entertainment, everything. So you've seen this field evolve from kind of the early days almost of the Jumbotron, and like I can remember, because I was doing camera for this actually. I can remember the Kiss Cam when that first came to, I think, Riverfront. Was it Riverfront, Jen? Was that Riverfront?
We first did it at Great American the first year.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I remember we didn't have lenses tight enough to actually shoot the shots we needed, but the marketing people wanted it anyway. I was like, no, dude, you can't do Kiss Cam on a big wide shot. That's not gonna work or whatever. But just certain things that are like, that are standard whenever you go to a sporting event or whatever. Jamie, you've seen a lot of this stuff evolve, and to the point now where you also include these sizzle creative videos, and you've got some of those people in-house, and you've seen how everything has changed. Explain, and then you can transition into your current role as well, which I don't know as much about, so you can educate me on this a little bit. But in terms of the person that does all of the in-house video productions for a professional sports team, which does include the in-house stuff, but then it also includes a lot of other off-season stuff and other productions for the team that people, that comes with that job that people aren't aware of. So educate us on the in-house video production team for professional sports teams.
Yeah, sure. So in my job currently, I basically oversee entertainment as a whole in the ballpark. So that includes basically the game presentation side, and then like the mascots, rally teams, etc. So what I'm used to at the Reds, what's new for me at the Brewers is having the mascots and rally teams under my watch. At the Reds, I was mostly just video production. So I'd be the one editing, and I'd be, I was a producer in the games. So at the Brewers, I think I edited maybe 2 videos this year. So my editing has been cut way down. But on the game presentation side, with the Brewers, I'm still the producer, show caller, for every home game. So basically it's my job to lead the team, and entertaining and really informing the fans. From the moment that they park their cars, and that they're walking in line, I'm in charge of putting entertainment on the plaza. What bands are we doing? What themes are we activating? How are we entertaining our fans from when they walk in, sit down, and leave? So everything that you see on the video boards, still the TVs, digital signage, everything that you hear in the bowl comes from my team. I oversee 10 full-time employees, plus probably 150 game day staff, and about 5 interns every year. And that starts with developing the run of show. What are we doing in pregame? How is our inning breaks laid out? As Betsy had mentioned, writing scripts. They're still writing in a lot of these positions in our field. So writing scripts for each game. Working to conceptualize what the vibe of our show is going to be. Ready for any moment. Coming up with different, I call them like skits and bits. So, doing the planted dancers and coming up with all of the end game features still. And we're working with creative and marketing to see what kind of new videos that they have, rally videos, being ready for any moment, historical moments, celebrations, and trying to make it where it's an immersive environment, and and that you're really entertaining the fans. I always say that our show is the main dish and the game is just the, you know, the side item. That's just the side show. I'm ready to put on our show. But behind all that, you know, you're working with partnerships, corporate partnerships, and you're working with marketing to come up with campaign ideas, and making sure that you're fulfilling all of the sales that partnerships made, but also really working because you know, it's an interesting working with different departments because we all have our own objectives, right? So partnerships just wants to sell, sell, sell. And I have to come in and be the police and be like, okay, well, you can sell that, but that's not super entertaining on my side. So we're going to have to meet in the middle here and come up with some sort of situation that gets you your money still, but doesn't take away from my show. Because I want it to be the best that it can be, and I don't want it bogged down by just a bunch of sponsorship all the time. So it's coming up with different ideas of how to make everybody happy, but still meeting the goal of putting on a great show. And then it's working with, you know, I'm still going out to spring training and working with the players and doing our gladiator shoots and working with our vendors and sports networks to make sure everybody's on the same page, coming up with a style guide and making sure that everybody's meeting the brand requirements of what to do. And then I still oversee like the budgets of everything and the technical side, the control room, the warranty contracts, working with vendors to come up with the latest technologies. What can we do? Working with lighting. And it's really funny, like you mentioned, like the Kiss Cam, like that's the basics of things. But now it's like, all right, what can we do to do all these light shows to get fans interacting and doing the flashlights and drone shows? And what are we going to do with fireworks and Cairo? And so it's turned into much more of a theatrical performance, really, more than just like your basic camera shots and cams. It's, you know, what's the next big thing? What's the newest technology? What AI can we put in here? What, you know, filters? What's the latest trends? And getting everything incorporated into your show. And then on the event side, it's also, we're doing mascot visits. So now I'm overseeing different events and different, anything that they're wanting our street team for or mascots to go out into the world. And so I'm overseeing that as well. So, yeah.
So next question. So this is a tough field, right? I mean, it's a really highly competitive field. And a lot of the positions, you kind of have to have certain, I think, God-given skills to get involved. But it's a really tough field to get into. And until you get to where you are, there's a lot of volunteer work. There's a lot of really low-paid work. There's a lot of crazy hours. What is it that drives you, that makes you think that this is why I do what I do, or I've been doing what I do? What is it about your particular specialty that you think drives you to continue to work in this field?
I think for me specifically, I love seeing the fan reactions. I love being a part of the moment and telling that story. Ultimately, we're all storytellers in what we do, whether you're on air, whether you're actually physically writing the story. Jen, you're painting the picture, you're telling the story of every, you know, when you're directing. And Teresa, you're editing and being a part of that moment and telling that complete story of that moment that happened. So we're all storytellers, and we're all sports fans. So I think for me, it's like, you are going to fail, but there's going to be those like amazing moments that you get to hold on to. And you're always looking for that next thing. Like for me, it's always the next challenge. What can I do better? Okay, that was an awesome moment. Next time I get this one opportunity, what can I do to make that even more of a unique moment that's going to be memorable forever? So I think for me, it's just, I love the sport. And I love telling stories and I love being part of the moment. And I just want to be there for the next moment so that I can make it even more memorable for that fan.
Sierra.
For me, I feel like everything that Jamie said, I can also agree with that. And then also just being able to tell the stories of the athletes because we have so much more time. We get to do special features that's getting to know the athletes a little bit more than you would know them by just looking at highlights or that kind of thing. Like one of my favorite things that I've done this season, in the sports media guide, there was a list of 4 sets of brothers on the UK football team. So I was like, we're gonna make this a little fun thing. We're gonna do a little game show, which brothers knows each other the best. And so I made it into like a competition of like, all right, you guys have to answer questions about each other, who knows each other the best. And as you can imagine, 8 men get really competitive about like, oh, I know this about him, this, that, and the other. And you come to find out the set of twins knew each other the least out of all the brothers. So it's just like doing stories like that. Like I wouldn't be able to do that in a typical 5 o'clock news hit. But being able to do that, and then also, even though I'm still pretty young in my career, I just think like if I were doing anything else, I genuinely do not think I would be happy. And so I think that's one of the main things that drive me is just like it genuinely brings me joy to do this, and then also being able to share special stories about these athletes.
I think that none of us would be doing this if we were not sports fans because they're long hours. You work Christmas, you work holidays, you work weekends when your friends are out and they text you, hey, we're at blah, blah, blah. Well, that's great while I'm working, you know. We wouldn't do it if we didn't love it. And kind of playing off what Wes said earlier, yes, I have several jobs. We have a sports PR company called Game Day Communications. We do Flying Pig Marathon. We work with Reds Fest. We did the PR for Taylor Swift when she was in town last year. I have a PR presentation that says Taylor Swift paid me to come to her concert. That's my headline, which she did. But we have the company. I freelance for Fox 19 here in town. I teach, but as Wes knows, my passion is play-by-play, and I would do play-by-play every day of the week, 12 months out of the year. I love doing play-by-play, especially basketball play-by-play, and I've been fortunate enough to do play-by-play for both men's and women's here at NKU over the years. And I want to tell you a story that kind of, I hope, illustrates why all of us do what we're doing. So one of my favorite play-by-play color analyst partners is Amber Stocks. And Amber Stocks, she played basketball at UC. She coached at Xavier. She was the coach and general manager of the Chicago Sky in the WNBA. She is now an attorney, and she is helping student athletes figure out NIL. So she is doing all kinds of things to help student athletes still. So the first Monday of November was the start of basketball season, college basketball season. And Athletes in Action up in Xenia, Ohio, was having a triple header. And their first game was a women's basketball game. And the producer contacted Amber Stocks and said, can you work color for our game? And she said, yes, I will work color for your game, for the women's basketball game, only if you find a female play-by-play announcer. And he said, I don't know a female play-by-play announcer. And she said, well, I do. Volunteered me, thankfully. She texted me, said, I hope it's okay, I volunteered you for this job. I said, yes, 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 please, thank you so much. And we did the game, and it was awesome. And not to leave out the guys, but this is directed for the women here. That's the way it's supposed to work. That's the way it's supposed to work. The female who is in the job is supposed to bring you up. Amber Stocks did not have to recommend me for that, but she did. And I had a blast because I love doing play-by-play. But that is the way that it is supposed to work. We're supposed to bring up the next generation, and not to get political or preachy, but in this day and age, it is so important for girls and young women to be seen and to be valued and to see other women doing what they want to do. Because if you see somebody who looks like you, who's doing what you want to do, then it becomes real. And so that's why it's so important that we lift this next generation up. I got to interview Billie Jean King, actually at Great American Ballpark. Got to interview Billie Jean King a few years ago. Did the interview, got done with the interview, and I shook her hand and I said, I know you've heard this 1,000 times, but I just want to thank you for everything that you've gone through and everything you have done to allow me to do what I'm doing now. And she said, well, that's great, but let me ask you something. How do they treat you here? And I'd never had anybody ask me that. How do they treat you here? Like, how do the guys that I work with at the Reds and, you know, and all the stations, how do they treat you? And so, you know, I gave her a 15-second, my resume. I said, we all work together. We've grown up together. We've worked together for 20 years. They know my work. They respect my work, and so they treat me very well. And she said, good. Pay it forward and pass it on. Pay it forward and pass it on. And that goes for you guys, too. You know, if you're doing something really swell, bring up the next person. You know, you may be the first person in your little group in high school who is going to college. And there's somebody at your high school who thinks it's really cool that you're going to college. Well, if he goes to college, I can go too. If she's in college, I can go too. Because there's still a lot of first-generation college students. But pay it forward and pass it on. And that's why it is so important that I think that girls and young women see us five, doing this. And it makes it real for you all that it can be possible. It's not easy. You have to put up with a lot of, again, bad hours, no pay, little pay. You have to put up still in the 21st century with comments that I wish that we still didn't have to put up with, but we do. But we go on and we do our jobs. And Butch Hobson, long time PR guy for the Cincinnati Bengals. His name is Jeff Hobson, but we call him Butch Hobson because that used to be a Red Sox manager. And I was talking to him, and he said, and it was the best compliment I think I've ever gotten. Butch Hobson said, I never thought of you breaking down barriers. I just thought of you doing your job. You just put your head down, did your job. And I said, you're right. We just all put our heads down and did our jobs. You know, you don't walk in there to the Reds control room and think, well, I'm going to break some barriers so some young girl can do this, you know, 5 years from now. You don't think about that. You just go in and do your job. And if somebody notices, great. But it's really important for girls and young women to be seen and be valued and know that if they want to do this, they want to do what we're doing, that you can. You really can.
That was beautiful.
It's good.
I know, try not to get emotional here. But I have a 21-year-old daughter, and I try to tell her all the time, like, a lot of time women, unfortunately, can be their own worst enemies. But I tell her all the time, there's enough space for everyone to succeed, everyone to be smart enough, everyone to be pretty enough, everybody to be funny enough. Like, support each other, you know, just like she said. And it's amazing what can happen. I mean, when I started directing, I was one of 2 in the entire league of female directors. It was a challenge. I mean, I show up in the truck, and it's always assumed that I am graphics or I'm a stage manager. And then I sit down, because they're always like, oh, is a director on site? And I'm like, yeah, I'm right here. It's still happening. I don't get offended by it, because that's just the reality of the situation. So you almost feel a little bit of pressure, like you have to kind of prove yourself. I don't feel that pressure, because I'm not in this position because I'm a female. Like, I just happen to be a female that's in this position. And since I've been directing, there have been a couple more females that have gotten into the directing mix. Our crews are more and more women on site. And yeah, I think it goes back to, like, we don't have to put each other down. We don't have to be competing for anything. Like, just raise each other up, support each other, offer to help out. And I think we'll continue to see the number of females in our industry grow and grow. I mean, I've seen it. Like I said, I remember watching you on TV being like, that's really cool. You know, she's a woman doing sports. And I played sports my whole life. That's what I wanted to do. And it is possible, and it is expanding every single day. So
Well, and I think that, and again, Wes and I have talked about this. I think that especially now, as we know, women's basketball has so many eyes on it now, college and WNBA, any level, and this again, this is not a put down on the men who do these jobs, because they do very well. But it is unconscionable that you don't have a female broadcast team doing women's basketball. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? I mean, it's so important, A, for the optics, and B, again, going back to what we said, you know, you all need to see women in those positions. And like when you go to the women's Final Four, they have a female PA announcer at the Final Four, because, yeah, you do. And I just think that now, because there's so many eyeballs that haven't been on women's sports before, especially women's basketball, show them, yeah, well, women have been doing play-by-play. You know, you see Doris Burke, you know, she's working the NBA, for Pete's sake. There's so many eyeballs now. It's such an opportunity to show what women have been doing over the last few years and the positions that they have now. And to show that, you know, women should support women. Women broadcasters should be there to support the teams and vice versa. And I just think it's so important now, just for the optics.
I will say that there are, the people I know in the crowd here, we have some rising stars. And I wanted them to hear you all. And I think, Morgan, you were here last year, right? You talked to Jen a little bit. Yeah. And who are you working for now, Morgan? The teams you're working for. Oh, the microphone? Yeah,
well, I can tell you, I
we
see
do
her.
that sometimes, yeah.
We can open this
her
up.
at the Reds ballpark. You know, I ran into her and I was like,
Sorry, I
hey,
just wanted to make sure, Sue.
yeah.
I work for currently the Cincinnati Reds, FCC, and Bengals.
Full
Good for
play.
you.
Yep.
She came up to me last year after the panel and like, who do I contact? And I either gave her Jamie's number or Billy's number,
Yep.
somebody, and then I saw her in the lunchroom one day. I was like, hey,
Yep.
that was you last year, right? So, yeah, just bring people along with you.
Yep.
And-
I don't want to point too many out, but Gracie works for CBS, does Bengals football and Ohio State football. I'm a little jealous of that, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, she's one of our seniors. And we have several others. I don't want to point like too many out, but those were two that were our panel last year and involved or whatever. So we have a nice crop that's coming up. So you all set a tremendous example for them. So and it's great. You guys have always been great for me, because I get to pick your brains and you get to tell me the latest of what's going on in the field and how it's developing, and that helps me seem a little smarter of a teacher than I really am. But you know, it helps to have the farm system of you all to constantly be able to go to. Well, let me just call Jamie, or let me call Jen, or let me call Sierra or Betsy or whatever, and I know I got the answers, you know, to everything. So yeah, your mere presence and what you've done, and you really rub off on a lot of the folks here, and really inspiring. And you're getting. I was going to get to the topic, and you got to it first. But Betsy wrote this great book about, was it 2011? Is that when it was? Betsy? Yeah. Okay. Called "Playing Balls with the Boys: The Rise of Women in the World of Men's Sports," and it's basically very inspirational, but also a good historical context of all of forerunners than all of the women in sports up until that point in 2011. And things have actually changed a lot. But this is a
I
great.
say it's
yeah.
very out of date, and I'm so glad that it is.
But it's not. It is in terms of historical context and the people and the additional people that have came along. But in terms of just being incredibly inspiring, it's a really good read. And I just got it like last week, and I've been thumbing through it. And it's really good, very inspiring stuff, whether you're male or female or anyone that wants to go into this particular field. And her writing skills are fantastic. When you have that broadcast news writing style of writing, everything's quick, concise, conversational. I love the style. I think it's fantastic. But in anything that we do, whether it's readers for live TV, or some sort of copy for a promo that's in-house in stadium, or it's the title that sets up a social media video, or a quick package, or whatever it is, we all use that style. And I think it's fantastic. I love it. How many times as a producer I'll be talking to people and we'll write something and we'll say, is that conversational? Do people say that? Do they use that word? Yeah. And those sort of games, and then trying to take a bunch of words and condense them. You have a question? I can talk.
I was just going to say, I know that when we be respective of time, we're short on time. Do we want to open it up to
Yes,
see
let's
if
do it.
there's any
Yes, please.
Yep.
questions from the audience?
Hello, you guys have done an amazing job tonight. My name's Stephen Hauser. I'm a 35-year-old Navy veteran, and I'm also a student at Cincinnati State. My question is, what advice would you give to someone who's aspiring to get that first internship in the sports field in order to open up your career?
Say yes to everything that you can. Reach out. Use your contacts that you have here at your school as well. I mean, ask people just how do you get in, because it is a small business. Everybody seems to know everybody for the most part. It might be hard to get in initially, but once you're in, if you work hard, you show up, you do a good job, you will quickly, it happens pretty quick. It's just a matter of getting in the door. But yeah, use all your contacts, just an email, volunteer if you can, intern if you can. That's how I think we all started. I mean, none of us are doing what we started out doing. I started out as an intern and worked my way up from there. So you have to have a yes mentality of there's no job too small, whether it's just a runner for a show. And I don't mean to say just a runner. They're important. Take those jobs, because once you're in there, then you get to look at and learn your position. I got into directing because I put myself down into the TV truck and did a job that I had no idea how to do, but I volunteered to do it because I wanted to be in the truck so I could listen to the director and learn how to do it. So just reach out, email if you can, but just say yes to everything that you can, because it does, like I said, just show up, do a good job, and you'll get asked. It's the main thing. Have a good work ethic. It goes a long way. Just getting in that initial is hard, I know. But once you do that, I think things take off pretty quick for most people.
Can I say something really quick too about that? And just do your research before you get into it, because I know, it can be hard to get that, even like that first initial internship. But if you come in, at least kind of like looking like you know what you're doing, I always say YouTube University and Western Michigan University are the two degrees I got, because I learned a lot just going online and watching other people's videos explaining things and whatnot. So you have so much access in this day and age with the internet. There's so many people now. I remember even back in college, I'd be trying to look up like sports videos, and how to edit. And 6 years later, there are so many resources that you can find, or just go on YouTube or go and just do your research on any of these topics now, because they're so readily available for you now.
And to piggyback off that, present yourself in a unique way. So don't just turn in your resume. You need to have a demo reel. You need to have some sort of site. You need to show off your work. You may not have a whole bunch necessarily to show, especially if you're in college trying to get that internship, Use your class projects. That's why volunteering is so important. List all the activities that you volunteered for. List your experience. But don't go in empty-handed, meaning have a demo reel ready. Whether it's showing your camera work or your editing ability, producing ability, replay, anything and everything. It's free to make a Google account and just make a Google site. I don't have a personal website. I made a Google site. Like, that's how, just present yourself in a good way. And like Jen said, good work ethic. And networking goes a long way. Network, network, network. If you don't know how to talk to people, there's an awesome book that I even read that's like The Art of Small Talk. Learn how to do it. Network, present yourself.
We have another question over here.
So a work-life balance is really hard to keep in this industry as you work late nights, holidays, especially with a family, since we have this towards women. What are some practicals you guys have placed into your life that make it somewhat normal compared to those who are like a 9 to 5 and can see their family and go to all these events? What have you guys done to either substitute that, or like have you made new traditions with your families and friends?
I take my kids to games as much as I can when they're available, especially in the summer, and then they learn to love the games. That way I can see them, they get to experience a little bit of what I do as well. A balance is a tricky word. There's never going to be a balance, right? So you have to do make the decisions that are right for you. There are going to be weeks where you're working late and I'm just like, hey kids, like, went to Costco, there's a whole bunch of food in the fridge, won't, see you for like a little bit, but when I do, I'll be here. The biggest thing for me that I do is when you're at work, try to be fully at work to do your best. And when you're at home, try to be fully at home and forget about work for a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that in our lives with the weird hours, you don't take that time for granted. So when you do have time, when you have the rare day off in a baseball season, you're making the most of it. You're planning, what are we going to do today? When I'm on the road, sometimes my family will join me on the road so that I can see them. Just making the most of the time when you do have it. I think now my kids are older, but FaceTime is a wonderful thing. You can still see your kids and stuff at home, but it's totally doable. I have a 21-year-old and a 17-year-old, and again, like Jamie said, it's not truly like balance, but I feel like the moments that we do have together are that much more special because it's more rare, so we don't take advantage of the time that we do get together.
Malika Andrews shared this really great analogy, and she quoted someone else, but I don't remember who she quoted. But she said, you're always juggling things, and some things will be made out of glass and other things will be made out of plastic. Some days work and yourself are the glass, so you make sure those things keep going, and everything else may fall, but it will bounce back up. So it may change depending on the day, the week, or whatever, but just identifying what's glass to you in the moment and make sure those balls keep juggling in the air, that's what's important. And I've been trying to utilize that more in my life as well.
One last thing too, just being a single mother of 3 going through this is building your village. Ultimately, don't be afraid to ask for help, whether that's at work or whether that's people in your personal life. You ultimately can't do it all. So it's okay to ask for help when you need it. If I can't leave and get them a ride or whatever, I'm going to lean on a friend, and people are willing to help you out. You don't have to do it all. Just ask for help, professionally and personally.
We probably have time for one more, maybe final question. Alex?
Betsy, I'm somebody who wants to get into play-by-play, whether it be men's or women's basketball. So what advice do you have for somebody trying to break into that field?
Well, it kind of goes back to what we talked about. Do it anywhere and everywhere that you can. I got started doing radio for Xavier women's basketball. And it was one of these things that they were coming off an Elite Eight run. They got a deal to do the radio broadcast, really didn't have anybody in-house, and asked me if I would do the radio play-by-play, and I said in my head, sure, how hard can it be? Well, wow. But going back to, there's so many videos, there's so much of a library out there of people doing play-by-play in color, and there are a lot, especially if you're talking about radio, there are a lot of broadcasters who do the whole shebang. They don't have a color analyst. They do play-by-play. They do everything, which is amazing to me. But sometimes you have to, going back to what we talked about, volunteering, sometimes you have to go back to your old high school and say, hey, are you streaming these games? Do you need somebody to help you with play-by-play or a PA announcer or something like that? You get the experience wherever you can. And this is at least 15 years ago, if not longer. And I wish I remembered the guy's name. I need to look him up. But he was here in town, and he wanted to be Barney Brenneman. He wanted to do baseball play-by-play in the worst way. And, those jobs, when those guys get those jobs, like a Marty Brenneman or a Vin Scully or some of those guys, they stay in those jobs for 50 years. So they don't come up very often. So this kid is trying to figure out how he's going to get experience. Well, the Florence Freedom, they were the Florence Freedom then. They had not been in town very long. And so he went to the Florence Freedom and said, hey, if I buy radio time, can I broadcast your games? They didn't have a radio deal. And they go, well, sure, why not? So he went to like WDJO or one of the real low power stations, bought 3 hours of evening time, which probably cost him $50 an hour. He sold the advertising for that broadcast, and he did the Florence Freedom play-by-play. Again, one of these guys that did it all by himself. But he did everything by himself. He bought the time. He sold the ads. He did the broadcast. And he got his reps in that way. He got his experience that way. And, after 2 or 3 years of doing that, then he got a minor league deal with a AAA team like Birmingham to do their play-by-play. But you kind of have to come up with your own way and your own experiences. And social media is a horrible thing, but the good thing about it is you can build your own network. You can do your own broadcast, basically. And so, whether it's going back to your high school or going back to any of the area high schools and say, do you need help doing play-by-play doing this? Or is it something that you create like this? Ann Liguori, who she has become a good friend. She is in my book, and how she got started was that basically the same thing. No, she wanted to do long-form sports interviews, and nobody was doing it. So she went to one of the cable stations in New York, bought a half hour, got BMW as an overall sponsor, which paid for the time, and then came up with a series called Sports Interviews with Ann Liguori. And she has been doing it for 20 years, and goes back from Ted Williams and Mickey Mantle up to today. She still does it. But that's how she got started. She had her own network. Well, nowadays, you don't even have to buy your own time. You can go on your YouTube channel and do things like that. But it's just getting your reps in, however you do it, is getting the experience, whether it's play-by-play, whether it's doing interviews, whether it's doing editing. Annie Agar, if any of you follow Annie Agar on social media, she's a hoot. She's a riot.
She's actually a friend of mine too.
And I love this kid. And, it was one of these things that she got laid off from her job at Grand Rapids doing sports because of COVID. She's sitting at home going, well, what am I going to do? And so she starts doing these Zoom interviews. And the first one was Big Ten. What if the Big Ten had a Zoom interview? And they're hysterical, and they're funny, and they're poignant, and they're knowledgeable. And I've gotten to meet her several times, and she has spoken to one of my classes. And, she was talking about, the whole thing is to show them that you know what you're talking about without being really blatant and, throwing out stats. But you can tell by her commentary that she knows exactly what she's talking about. She knows exactly what happened at that game. She knows the personnel. She knows the personalities. And she makes it fun and she makes it entertaining. And she said that it takes her 4 hours to edit. Once she shoots the thing, and if you're familiar with her or, go follow her, but it takes her 4 hours to shoot, and she changes jerseys like every time that she's talking about a team, and edits it, and she does it all on her phone. Does it all on her phone. She says her cellular hours are like, through the roof. But she does it all on her phone. And so that, again, is a way to show that you don't need fancy equipment. You don't need a network. You don't need a station. You can now do it yourself. And you can build a following. And she just did it herself as a lark during COVID, blew up, goodbye Grand Rapids, see ya. And now, she's a star. But the whole idea is to, put yourself out there and get your reps in. And yeah, we were all bad when we started. But the more you do it, I swear to you, the more you do it, the better you're going to get. And you don't have to wait for, Channel 9 or Channel 5 or Channel 18 to call you. You can do it yourself. Which leads me to a question for you. Are you allowed to do your own social media?
As in, like, if I wanted to produce something separate from...
Yeah, like say, hey, I got a weekend off, so I'm going to the Ohio State-Indiana game this weekend. And, can you do that on a personal channel, or does it all have to be through?
I'm sure
station?
I can. Scripps is the parent company of LEX 18, and basically our Twitter accounts are also like an extension of Scripps. But for the most part, they don't have like strict rules of like, you can't necessarily do something like that. Like if I wanted to make a series about me going out to different ballparks or whatever, I don't think they'd be against that. But when it comes down to like the lines between being a journalist and content creator, that's when they'll step in. They'll be like, hey, you can't be doing like sponsor ad, things like that. But if I were to go out and be like, this is a mini series about like every UK game I've gone to, they would let me have free reign with that.
And frankly, that's a way for you to build your brand, your own personal brand, and that's what it's all about.
He is the Wheel Deal, right? At the Wheel Deal on Twitter. Yeah, he's our sideline reporter for our ESPN and our Valley Sports, our FanDuel, or whatever that was, FanDuel TV, whatever it's called now. Yeah. Right, yeah. So,
That's cool, though.
yeah.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
he's
But-
working his brand. He does play-by-play for our women's games, and he's
Yeah.
And he's a sports editor for the Northerner.
I mean,
forgot about that.
get your reps in.
Yep.
And that's the best way to do it.
Yes.
Good for you. That's awesome.
Reps are an important term, and I don't care if it's talent in front of a camera, if it's writing articles, if it's directing, doing any of the production positions, replay, whatever it might be. Getting opportunities to get your reps in, because you just suck in the beginning. No matter what it is you do. And you got to get that out of your system and then get in your group. But you just have to have so much stuff. So eventually you can have the good stuff to use as samples of your work and also build your confidence as well. So I don't know where I first heard that term, but yeah, getting reps in regardless of what aspect of this field you do is so incredibly important.
Also, it takes time to become confident. That's one thing that I'm still learning, is not to look at other people or how they come across or that kind of thing. Like, yeah, watch other people's sportscasts to like just see how things go, but don't necessarily watch it to compare yourself to what they're doing or how they're saying something. Like I don't like watching things that I did 6 months ago because I'm like, ew, why did I say it like that? Why do I look like that? So it just takes time, and your confidence will continue to grow, and it'll get there. And then eventually one day I'll be able to look back and be like, that was cute. Now I do much better. But right now I'm still in that phase of like, yeah, that's not great.
Well, I know we're at time, so I want to be cognizant of everyone's time and just give a huge thank you to our panel, to all 5 of our panelists from around the country and local.
Thank you.
And to Wes, our moderator. Woohoo! For Wes.
Thank you.
And I'll just say, if you like this kind of content, if you like the panel, the educational workshops, I really do encourage you to check out Women in Film Cincinnati, one of our sponsors. It's, again, a membership, nonprofit organization, but we have lots of different networking opportunities, panels like this, workshops, hands-on things. And the Oink Film Festival coming up is also another day-long workshops, networking, good time. So more information about that is out there. And with that, I don't know if there's any closing words. Wes?
Let's go home.
Have some pizza
Yes,
on
please
the
have
way
pizza.
out.
Because I don't
Please
want to
take
take it
pizza.
all. I'll eat it. And I don't
He
wanna do
will,
that.
and he'll be very sad
I
tomorrow. So
can't
don't
yeah, I know.
don't let that happen.
Yeah,
So
I
take
can't
some
say no
pizza,
to
and thank you all so much
bad
for,
food.
for
If it's
being
there,
here.
I'm
Have
gonna eat it.
a wonderful evening.
Thank
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys, for helping out.